I am thrilled to be joined by Staci Berger, the CEO of the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey. Staci, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Well, we've got a lot to get to, really important topics. Most importantly, let's talk about the Housing Stability Project grant that has come from the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund. So they've specifically allocated some money that's coming to your organization. Tell me why this is so important.
New Jersey has a very strong housing crisis prior to the pandemic. People are really struggling to keep a roof over their head. Before, people were asked to stay inside and stay home to make sure that we kept each other safe. And people took real hits to their pocketbooks and their saving accounts. We already had a housing crisis, Brian. New Jersey ranks 6th. We sometimes are 5th, sometimes 7th, but we're traditionally in the top 5 or 6 states where it's very difficult to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment. Last year's statistics, before the pandemic, people earning minimum wage had to work 3 full-time jobs a week, which is basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year, to afford that apartment. So when the pandemic hit, it became very difficult for people to pay their rent and to pay their mortgage. We are very grateful to Governor Murphy for adopting very early the eviction moratorium, which prevents people from being removed from their home, whether they're a homeowner or a renter. But we know that at some point that eviction moratorium is going to be lifted, and people are going to need real serious help making sure that they can keep a roof over their head. So the resources from the Pandemic Relief Fund will allow us to provide direct assistance to about 50 organizations across the state of New Jersey in every nook and cranny of the Garden State, so that people have access to housing counseling and eventually legal assistance if they need it from Volunteer Lawyers for Justice, which we're thrilled to be partnering with. But we're going to be sort of the first point of entry. Our housing counseling organizations are going to be able to answer questions for people. How do I make sure my landlord is treating me fairly? How do I make sure that I'm not paying more than I should? How do I protect my credit rating? How do I check to be sure that my rent is being used properly? All of those questions, which unfortunately up till now, no one really is able to answer. So this is really, it's a huge crisis, but it's also an opportunity to make sure that people have the information that they need and deserve.
Wow. I mean, this is all super important. I want to unpack a couple of these things. So if somebody wants to get more information, is this going to cost them anything? They call you, they're going to get a bill?
No, absolutely not. No. Good housing counseling is never charges. HUD certified housing counseling, of which the network is an intermediary. That means we supervise other housing counseling agencies. Never charge. No one should ever pay for housing counseling, whether it's for this program or it's first-time home buyer programs or it's foreclosure counseling. So that's a really good and important thing for your viewers to know. Good quality housing counseling is always free.
I want to dig into you and your team a little bit, because you have this wide area of people that you have to bring in to help make all this happen. Tell me a little bit about you and your operation and how things are going over there.
Sure. So the network is the statewide association of nonprofit community development organizations. We represent about 250 community groups, private sector partners, housing advocates, and other folks who are concerned about the high cost of housing in New Jersey. So we have members and partners in every city and town, county around the state, and we can put people in touch with help pretty quickly. We have folks in all kinds of places who reach different populations and sometimes overlapping constituencies. So because of the work that we've done for more than 30 years. So we are really poised to be able to get folks information in a timely fashion. You know, we want the eviction moratorium to go on as long as necessary so that nobody is removed from their home. And we want to make sure that small landlords are able to, recoup some of their losses. And so we expect that there'll be some back and forth between tenants and landlords to try to get those bills paid. And we want to make sure that everybody is coming to the table, in a fair and reasonable way.
It's a true crisis, and you and your team are right here on the front line. You're doing incredible work. Staci Berger, CEO of the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey.
Thank you so much, Brian.